Hey everybody, it's Ted Prodromou, and welcome. And we've got Ryan Baker with us today. Hey Ryan.
Hey, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
We were just chatting. We were like met in the Perry Marshall world. There's so many amazing people in that world, isn't there?
There are just everybody's a top producer, and they let me in as well, and it was really nice of them.
Yeah. We all start somewhere, right?
Yeah,
Well, Planet Perry is an amazing place.
it is.
Definitely. So we're just talking about the most common barrier to growth that nobody's talking about. I like the curiosity in that. So you got to tell me
Yeah.
more. Come on.
Well, yeah. Now that we're talking about it, I guess there's a couple people, but yeah, basically, I in my life and in my business journey, I realized that I've been in marketing and growth for a long time, and everybody's talking about these different barriers of to customer acquisition and cost and platform changes and things like that. But nobody's really talking about one that held me back for decades. And the what I ended up finding out is that really everybody deals with this on some degree or another, some level or another. And it's imposter syndrome, self-doubt. It's that question, am I enough? And if you don't have a positive answer to that question, it affects everything you do. So, I invested tens of thousands of dollars into my own, personal development, and then I realized, actually, at a Perry Marshall conference, there was this exercise that we were going through in which we were supposed to kind of figure out a theme, behind our life story and
Right.
use that story in our business. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think I'm worthless. Like, no wonder I can't sell anything. No wonder I can't, charge what I'm worth. Because I knew up here, that I was worth a lot, that I had a lot of potential.
Yeah.
But I didn't know it, in here. I wasn't convinced. And so there was this dissonance. And that dissonance prevented me from authentically serving in anything I did. So I was really difficult to employ whenever I had a job. And I couldn't sell anything because all I cared about was getting stuff to prove that I was worth something. And that's not really how sales works.
I went through that similar thing. I have 20 years in the tech world, then I'm in marketing, trying to market my own business. That's where I met Perry Marshall, learned Google AdWords. And I said, oh, I got to learn copywriting. I got to learn web design. I got to learn Photoshop. And I kept, when's it going to end?
Yeah. Yeah. And we don't realize that, no amount of learning is going to give us that value or that significance, that worth that we feel like we should have, but don't. And so, we're constantly pursuing this external validation that's going to give us the skill or the silver bullet, to our growth problems. But really, it's this internal dissonance that we have that is preventing us from being able to see the value that's already there. I mean, a lot of it, we're getting this value from learning things,
Right.
but we can't give that value back in a way that creates the kind of mutual benefit that business thrives on. And so it's this kind of perpetual cycle
Yeah.
of investing and being kind of disappointed that you don't get immediate success without really trying, and then giving up and going and spending more money on something else that doesn't work.
I can't tell you how many times I had, this is the one that's going to put me over the top.
Yep, I'm going to be that next case study.
Right.
And there are obviously people that are case studies, for a reason.
Right.
But if you don't deal with that internal dissonance, it's not going to be you.
Yeah. Yeah. Gosh, I wish I would have met you like many years ago to save so much money.
I wish I would have met me many years ago, right? No, like everybody asks that question, what would you tell your 18-year-old self? And I'm like, well, I'd grab him by the scruff of the neck and slap him around a little bit. Like, hey, look, it's not about you.
Right.
But that's one thing that a lot of times this kind of gets into some personal stuff.
Yeah.
And so for me, when I was 3 years old, my dad left. Like my earliest memory is asking my mom, hey, when is daddy coming home? And finding out he's not, right?
Wow.
And so I thought my entire life that I'm fine. I still have a relationship with my dad. I still see him frequently. I love my dad. But I didn't realize how that affected me internally. So I'd always distract myself with things. I made friends super easily. I was always spending time with people and socializing. I was a jokester, really easy to get along with. But deep down, everything I did, and I realized this in that exercise, was everything I did was to prove to my dad and to myself that I was worth something. And I was seeking that as I grew up in money and business, and you'll never make enough to feel like you're worth something.
Right.
So it's a tough problem that a lot of people have.
Yeah. Like you said, you got to get out of your own way. But how long did it take you to discover this and get out of your own way?
Oh man, well, it's I think it's a never-ending process, but if you really want to, I actually developed a framework after kind of realizing this and going through a journey. I think it was probably 3 to 5 years to really, really unpack and go through. I'm hoping to shorten the process for others, right? But I kind of put together this 3-phase framework, and the 3 phases. It's 5 steps, but 3 phases, sounds a little better. So you look inward, and you identify, where did this, like, how is this affecting me in my life and in my business? Where did this come from? Is this from a wound? Like, my father left, like, there, and then, I was seeking that kind of father figure in several other people in my life. So in some bosses, that's not a healthy relationship. So
Yeah.
you want to talk about being difficult to employ, like, don't look for your boss to be your father.
Right.
And so there were a lot of issues, but being able to look inward and recognize, oh, I'm doing all these things because I'm seeking some form of worth that I can't get from other people.
Right.
And so you have to look inward. That's phase 1. And then phase 2 is you have to seek peace. And in some cases, in most cases, really, I think that's forgiveness. Can bring that peace. You have to forgive others, so I have to forgive my father. I have to forgive, people that maybe wronged me or made me feel like less than I am. But you also have to forgive yourself, because so often we blame ourselves for the actions of others. Kids who come from broken homes often blame themselves for their parents leaving. It's, oh, well, they didn't love me. I was born, and then they couldn't deal with it, so they left.
Yeah.
That's rarely, if ever, the case. But it doesn't matter how logical something is, if your heart's involved. So if you can deal with that forgiveness, and that's where the ongoing process really happens. And we can unpack that more later if needed. But you deal with that and seek that internal peace, and that's what enables you to get to the real growth accelerator, which is phase 3, and that's to focus outward. So you focus inward, seek peace and healing, and then focus outward. And when you're focused on others, identify a purpose, that a problem you can solve for people, something you're passionate about, some way you can help and provide value to others, and then begin to serve them. Well, that's what business is. That's all business is. So helping people overcome a problem, create some transformation in their lives.
Right.
And provide value. And when you can provide that value, suddenly you're being valuable and you're focused on them. It's a lot easier to feel valuable when you're being valuable and you're helping others.
Yeah, I grew up, my parents owned a restaurant, so we were always serving people my whole life.
Yeah.
That's what I've been doing my whole career. It's like just helping people. And it makes, when you get into those ruts, if you just reach out and start helping people again, you kind of get out of your own way.
Yeah. Yeah, and the answer is so simple, but a lot of times we don't do that work on the inside first. So we seek to maybe serve because we know up here that that's what helps.
Yeah.
But if we don't take care of what's in here, then we still have that dissonance between, I view authenticity as the cure to this dissonance. And authenticity, I'm making a LinkedIn series on it now, is to align the head with the heart. And then the actions flow forth from that alignment. So, when the head, heart, and hands are all in alignment, then the actions are authentic. Then you can be your authentic self.
Yeah. Sounds similar to when I was getting coaching certification. It was 20 years ago right now, actually.
Sounds like good
Taming Your
work.
Gremlin was a book, and it was like that little voice inside your head. It's like just controlling you. But when you got into the heart, it just opened things up so much more.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. It's a little easier to change the mind than it is to change the heart, and that's one of the tricky things. It takes a lot more inward reflection, introspection, time, and I think the forgiveness piece is really key and really difficult, because it has to do not with forgetting, but with addressing, accepting that things have happened. It's in the past. Holding on to it isn't going to help you move forward and grow. But the healing has to take place, and so I'm a Christian, so I found that praying for the people that I need to forgive is a really great way. There's a author speaker named John Bevere who has a book called The Bait of Satan. He talks about that in that book. For anyone that's not wanting to go the Christian or religious route, like a forgiveness journal might be a good idea. So just kind of writing out things that maybe you would want for yourself, but maybe writing out things like, I hope that such and such happens for this person. I hope that they experience success in their business. I hope this, and just kind of trying to get into their minds, that shift, so that it can kind of begin to sink down. And wishing well for others is kind of a healing process. It's not an overnight thing, but it can help you shift that focus from retaining anger and fear, making that subconscious comparison between the people that you need to forgive and yourself, or kind of helping to make yourself a little easier to get along with inside. If that makes sense.
Kind of like the gratitude journal. People are,
Yeah.
what are you grateful for? Then be grateful for the other people, even though they did wrong to you.
Yeah.
It releases it.
Exactly. That's another a great way to help, is being grateful for everything you have, but also for the things that those situations, those people have brought you through, so that you can be more valuable to others because of that strength that you now have in you.
Right. So is this something people can do for themselves, or do you need someone to coach you through it? Or
you can do it for yourself. It's not always a super intuitive process. So the framework I developed, I'm delivering through workshops. I'm doing one tomorrow at 3 p.m. Central. I can drop a link on my LinkedIn page. There's an event. It's kingleyconsulting.com/grow on purpose, with hyphens in between grow on purpose. I do coaching as well, putting together a course. I really want to help people understand this and walk through it to kind of experience that peace and authenticity that I have finally felt. I feel more like myself now than I have. There were years and years of anger and fear and irritability, and there's so many ways this shows up. But I want people to experience that. So probably be writing a book at some point as well. That's an undertaking. So
no, when you're in that negative state and you're spiraling out of control, it's really hard to just stop and be positive.
Yeah.
Sometimes just talking through, like we're talking here, kind of just helping people walk through it. There's no judgment, just help people answer the questions and focus on that positive.
Exactly. Yeah. So if I had to give like a quick win to somebody to give them some steps they could take like right now, then, I would say, make a list of the things in your business or in your life that you feel are holding you back from growth. Maybe if you see someone, online, it's so easy on social media now to see all of these success stories. I went from $0 to 8 figures in 3 months or whatever. It's absurd.
Yeah.
But you see things like that, and often think like, okay, well, why can't that be me? Well, think through. You know, why is it that I'm struggling? You know, am I struggling in sales? Am I struggling to write copy that converts? You know, am I able to find product market match? You know, like what ways is this affecting my business or my life? You know, am I really angry whenever, you know, my significant other or you know, a family member um, you know, makes a comment about my business?
Right.
Or you know, am I ashamed when I'm explaining to people what I do? You know, or do I justify or defend my business before people have insulted it? You know, like
Mhm, right.
all of these things. Kind of recognize, like, okay, is this an issue for me?
Yeah.
Um, and then kind of go back and look and see if there's a root cause.
Yeah.
So, you know, is there an event that occurred? You know, like a parent leaving. That's a big one that happens all the time. But you know, maybe it was just like a sibling. You know, your family was together, but a sibling was super successful,
Yeah.
and you feel like you're always in their shadow. You know, sometimes it's a teacher told you that you'd never be good at something. You know, oh,
Oh, yeah.
you'll never be a writer. You know, you'll never be an artist.
Yep.
So, you know, go back and really spend some time thinking this through, and then, you know, write out a gratitude journal, like you said, or a forgiveness journal. You know, if you're comfortable with it, pray for those people,
Yeah.
and kind of start to seek that inner peace.
Right.
And then all the other steps, you know, that it would take longer to walk through. But I think that's a really good start for helping to make that shift from always internal focus to external focus of being able to serve.
Yeah. A lot of times when you kind of get into that negative spin or business slows down a little bit, then you start comparing yourself to your competitors. And oh, he's making so much money. And most of the time when people are saying they're making a ton of money online, they're not.
Yeah. Well, and even if they are, you know, that's their path.
Yeah.
You don't know how hard they've worked to get there. You don't know how long they've been doing it.
Yeah.
And you know, if they just started and experienced amazing success, so what? You know, they're helping people. That's great.
Give them
Um,
gratitude. Yeah.
yeah. And if you want those things, then, you know, look inside, seek peace, and then look outward. And when you're focused 100% on your customers and your target market, everything becomes easier. You know, this growth becomes easier. Identifying ways to serve, you know, ideation and innovation becomes so much easier because you're focused on them, their lives, their problems, their you know, messaging and language. Everything, when you're focused on them,
Yeah.
gets easier.
That's these days. There's like customer service is so horrible, and people are. If you just focus on the other person, give them like in a restaurant, we had to give good service and good food. If we just focused on that, people loved it.
Yeah, make them feel special. You know, make them feel like they're the only person in the world. And of course, you know, you do have to run a business. You can't give them, you know, 12 hours of service and let the other tables suffer. But
Yeah.
you know, make them feel heard, seen, you know, valued. And if they're more than just a dollar bill to you, then, you know, you're going to be able to show that through your actions.
Yeah. And through the pandemic, I just started reaching out to people. Say, hey, how you doing? We haven't talked in a while. Is everything okay? I wasn't trying to sell them anything. Just, you know, pinging my friends or past clients.
Yeah.
Just checking in on them. Simple little message or a phone call. They really appreciate that.
It makes a world of difference, especially nowadays when it's so difficult to find community or to find people that genuinely care about you. Just a little message to someone can be life-changing, can really give them what they need.
Yeah. So what makes you really happy? Like, what's a win for you?
Well, I love helping entrepreneurs recognize this internal growth barrier, this imposter syndrome, and overcome it. And then start serving others. You know, you can change the world through all these ripple effects if you just help a few people.
Yeah. Just be yourself. Be authentic. Don't try to be someone else. Just be authentic and helpful. And
Yeah.
That's great. So any parting words of wisdom?
Um, yeah, actually, so I have a post that I recently put on LinkedIn. So when people say to be yourself, that can be kind of confusing. I'm kind of touching on that in some of my content. So if it's not selfish to ask, go check it out. Hopefully that can resonate with you and provide you a little value.
Okay, great. No, I just love what you're doing. And how long have you been doing this now? Since this?
Well, I was recently the VP of a marketing agency, so I've been doing this all of a month now. But
Okay.
it's amazing to see the difference it's making in people's lives that I'd never met before, and it feels like everything's taking off now that I'm actually aligned. It's great.
You've obviously been doing this a lot longer than a month because you're building the foundation.
Yeah, the foundation's been only 10 plus years in the making, but
Right. Overnight
yeah,
success story, 10 years.
oh, at least, yeah. It's been the framework took a while to develop, and I wouldn't wish anyone the experiences that led to these discoveries. And but I do hope that they can provide value to people and spare them some of the struggle that I went through in my business.
Yeah, I've been a personal development junkie for about 25 years. And my wife's always saying, "Aren't you fixed yet?"
Oh, if we're ever fixed, then the world's it can shut down and we can get rid of the internet. We'll be good.
So how can people, what's your website, and how can people learn more about your new upcoming program?
Yeah, so my website's kinglyconsulting.com. Best place really to get in touch with me is LinkedIn. I'm most active there. I don't pay a ton of attention to my website.
Music to my ears, LinkedIn.
You're the man, Ted. I have learned so much through speaking with you, and I love LinkedIn. I love the way that you approach it, and been using that. So check me out there. Follow my content, engage with me, send me a message. I'll respond. I'll chat with you. I'm a real person. So
Hey, wow, amazing. How refreshing. Hey, Ryan, this has been great. Thank you so much for your time.
Ted, thank you for yours as well. Appreciate it.
We'll talk